Hey everybody, Pete Burak here, Vice President of Renewal Ministries. I came through the Christmas holidays and everybody kept asking the same question, how was Christmas? And it was an interesting thing to answer as a married father of 5, where on one hand, it was amazing. It was glorious. The smiles of the kids, the joy of opening presents, the various liturgies we went to, and the various things we celebrated, and the traditions, and the movies, and the songs, and all of it. There was so much joy, so much rest, so much feasting. And on the other hand, it was really hard. There was a lot of sugar consumed, which meant the kids had a lot of energy they already have a lot of energy, but there was a lot of times where it was extra energy, and a lot of late nights, a lot of early mornings, a lot of meltdowns that we didn't see coming. There was a rhythm of life that comes from the kids being in school that was disrupted from the kids not being in school. And what I noticed was both things were true. It was great and wonderful, and I'm so glad it happened. And you know what? I was pretty excited to see school start again and kind of get back to the normal rhythms of life. And as I was reflecting on that with the Lord, one of the things that I've noticed in our society and just in my own life is that it's very hard to hold two things to be true at once. It's very hard to be able to acknowledge two things simultaneously corresponding or coexisting with each other, rather, that seem like opposites. This idea that something is true but the other thing is also true, and they seem to be in conflict with each other. And as I was reflecting on that, and we see this in the political sphere where something has to be dogmatically one way and there's no room for anything else because it's so dogmatically one way over here. Or I feel so strongly about this that it leaves no room for anything else to even be within a spectrum of a belief on that. And we see this in the church too, where there's a polarization happening right now in the church, whether it's around liturgies, whether it's around particular spiritualities, whether it's around particular personalities, of kind of falling in line so completely with one way of thinking, with one version of the events, with one understanding of our tradition or our teachings or what the church is supposed to be or isn't or is or whatever, our understanding of things, that we fall so completely in it that we lose the ability to acknowledge even and to respect and to actually value the counterbalance that is often present in those things. Now, to be fair, there are some things that are not really to be held in tension, like good and evil. There's never a time where we could say, on one hand, it is good to contracept, and at the same time, it is not good to contracept. That doesn't coexist. There's no gray area there. There's plenty of other examples where the proper moral stance is definitively one thing, and therefore definitively not the other thing. But then there are lots of space within the church's understanding of life and pastoral living and a life of discipleship where we kind of have to navigate seemingly things that are contradictory to each other, but both are present in the Christian life. And so there's several that I'm going to point out here. And I think what we have to approach this as is a humble heart to say, Lord, I don't fully understand everything about life. I am not the Lord of my life. You are. You are going to be calling me into several different experiences, several different aspects of my life that I have to navigate with you. And in navigating it with you, I'm trusting that you're going to help me understand and appreciate and submit to each thing that you put in my path and to derive the value that you have for me within it. So for me as a father through Christmas, I was constantly trying to say, Lord, who do I need to be in this moment where everything in me wants to sit and rest and watch a football game, but the kids want to go outside and play? Neither one of those is good or bad. There's not necessarily a right and wrong decision there, but I'm trying to say, Lord, how do I internally and externally live with the peace of feeling this tension of there's a desire here and a desire here, and they seem to be pulling me in two different directions. What am I to do? So that's just a practical example of some of the things I'm talking about. So here's some more. In the Christian life, we often are faced with what seems like a dichotomy of either big, grand, kind of public displays of fruitfulness or simple, small, hidden displays of faithfulness. And it's both and, right? At different points, the Lord is going to call us in the church to big displays, big public noticeable evidence of the goodness of God and the goodness of his people and the fact that we exist. A good example of this was the Eucharistic Congress this past summer. Big, tens of thousands of people, big and grand, expensive, broad, known, seen, and it was fruitful. But the temptation to be like, well, that's fine, but that's not as fruitful as the simple, hidden, monk somewhere who's praying faithfully and living the vocation that he's called to live. And we can almost set up a disparity there, that one is better than the other, or one should be valued more than the other, or like this isn't actually that good. And the temptation we run into in these examples is to actually diminish one in order to elevate the other, instead of acknowledging that both can be good. And both are good if they're being faithful to what the Lord is calling us to. So it's good and great that the Eucharistic Congress came off the way it did because the Lord designed it that way. And it's good and great for the mom who's praying the rosary faithfully in the kitchen while kids are crawling all over her legs. That's also good and great. Will we ever see that? Will that ever make it on EWTN? Probably not. Does that make it less than this? No. It's about faithfulness and a holding intention that in the Christian life, there's going to be big moments and simple moments. Another one. Sometimes the Lord is going to move very quickly in our lives, and we're going to see rapid change and rapid freedom and rapid healing. And sometimes it's going to be very slow. Tension, both and. Sometimes it's hard to navigate as a disciple. Lord, I want to move at this pace, but you seem to be calling me to move at this pace. Lord, I want to be there, but I'm still here. And then other times it's like, Lord, we're moving too fast. Slow down. Both are possible. Both are good. Another one is the Christian life is we live both temporally and eternally. We need to be very present to the moment the Lord has given us. This is the day the Lord has made. Let us rejoice and be glad in him. Praise God for this moment right now. And we never lose sight of where we're going. We are pilgrims on a journey. This is not our home. We are made for eternity. So I can live fully in the present while also living fully for the future. That's a tension. That seems like a dichotomy. How could you be fully present and fully looking towards the future? But this is what we see in Jesus. We see him aware of the person right in front of him, ministering to the person right in front of him. The woman at the well has his attention, but he's never unaware of where he's going and where she's going. He's never unaware, Jesus, of the cross, the resurrection, the final judgment. He's totally aware of all eternity while he ministers in the here and now. Similarly, we have the tension often of individual or communal. What is our individual response to the Lord and what is our communal response to the Lord? Complementary, necessary for both, but not necessarily the same thing. And sometimes we can so value our own individual walk with the Lord that we ignore or minimize the communal aspect. And sometimes we do the opposite. We're so involved in the community, so pushing towards other people, so external in our focus that we lose sight of what the Lord wants to do in our own heart. Another one would be healing and suffering. This is a big one. This one requires somebody like Father Matthias probably to give a full teaching on. Father Matthias Thalen with Encounter Ministries. They have some great stuff on how they're all in on the praying with people to be healed and believing that the Lord can and will heal. But the reality is not everyone is healed. So how do we live with that tension? How do we also recognize the full teaching of what the church has taught us about redemptive suffering and the great value of suffering well, of uniting our suffering to the Lord's suffering, of asking him to heal us, but being obedient and faithful and open to whatever his response is. The way I like to talk about it is just the Lord has an opinion about every suffering. He has an opinion about all suffering in our life. So we should ask him, what's his opinion? And his opinion might be, I'm going to heal you right now in a supernatural way. His opinion might be, I'm going to heal you through modern medicine. His opinion might be, you're not going to be healed right now, but you're going to be healed later. Or his opinion might be, you're not going to be healed in this life, but you're going to be healed with me for all eternity in heaven. He's the boss. He's the one with the power to do all the healing anyway. So it's our job not so much to guess what his opinion is, but to ask him what his opinion is, with the faith that all are options and all are good as long as they come from him. When we're striving for one thing, or we're not striving is the wrong word, when we're grasping for something, And we're deciding in kind of almost like, Lord, this is what it should be, as opposed to being like, Lord, what do you want it to be? That's where we lose that healthy tension of both healing and suffering, and we drift into one or the other. Well, I'm only going to suffering, and it's only I should just accept this suffering because it's never going to change. Or there has to be healing. The Lord must heal. He has to heal in this moment, in this way. Another last one I thought of was just that tension of sometimes there's a response of faith to the gospel, and sometimes there's a rejection. There's a tension there. Now, that one's a little bit more, we really want response of faith, but we have to live as Christians with the tension that some say yes and some say no. And it can be hard for us who believe to navigate that tension of like, I want everyone to say yes. And why won't they say yes? Why aren't they responding in faith? How can they not see? How can they not believe? But somehow, again, we see in Jesus' life where he's walking, he's faithful to the Father, he's fulfilling his mission, he's proposing himself, he's proposing discipleship, and some people receive it, submit, convert, and others walk away, reject. It's a tension. It's something that we have to hold in an understanding that part of the Christian life is that some are going to say yes and some are going to say no. We know that the Lord desires that all would be saved and come to the knowledge of the truth. But we also know through free will that some will reject that offer of love. So all of these are just examples of this willingness as a disciple to live in that being and doing, that abiding and becoming, that resting in action, that I'm here but want to be there, that the Lord is doing something in me and through me. All of these are examples of kind of this healthy tension that develops within the Christian life. And instead of running from that tension or trying to explain it away or finding security and being so ingrained in one particular thought when you find tension exists, my encouragement to you is when you start to feel that kind of pulling in two directions, to pause and say, Lord, what are you doing here? What's your perspective on this? And Lord, protect me from jumping so far into one direction or another that I actually lose the healthy balance in the spirit of being willing to navigate these things, holding two things to be true at once. And I bet if you take a few minutes, you can think of other examples where you become so definitively one way that you lose the value and the good of something else in the pursuit of one thing. And that one thing actually becomes a certain Lord of your life. A hedge of protection so that you don't have to navigate the tension that develops from accommodating, in an appropriate way, multiple things, allowing multiple things to be true at once. It's one of the great joys and great challenges of Catholicism is there's a lot of both ands. There's a lot of, it's kind of like improv, like yes and. There's a lot of like yes and we build off of it. And of course, just so I'm checking my boxes again, there are some things that there are no accommodation to. There is not a yes and to sin. There's never like a, yes, this is virtue and we can add some sin in there. Okay. That never works. That's never right. That's not at all what I'm referring to. But within the scope of what the church teaches is good, true, and beautiful, there can still develop tensions. And there can still be these times where it's like, it feels like this, but I also feels like this. And in those moments, resist the urge to go all in on one so as to feel safe and secure. Let your safety and security be in Jesus and allow him, with both hands outstretched, give you what you need to be his disciple. God bless you.